So welcome everyone to this week's ASPRS Mentors podcast. This week we have with us Shannon Kotylak. Are you okay with us recording and sharing on social media?
100%.
Awesome. Well, first off, can you please introduce yourself and discuss your background?
Sure. My name is Shannon Kotylak, as you mentioned, and I'm the program head and one of the instructors for the Bachelor of Applied Management program at Saskatchewan Polytechnic. It's a program that runs in the evenings and online for non-business graduates and journey persons to get a business degree after they finish their education. My background, I was a director of marketing and communications for many years. I've had my own business, and I have an MBA in organizational leadership as my focus, which makes me qualified to teach in your program.
Awesome. So as the program head of the Bachelor of Applied Management program, can you describe the origin of the program and why it was created?
Well, there was a need that was identified for these non-business diploma graduates to get the business skills that they need. We've talked about it. I will shout it from the rooftops. Just because somebody is good at their job, whether it's an accountant or a plumber or a mechanic or a graphic designer, the natural next move is to promote them or for them to go and start their own business. Well, there's a lot more to being a manager, to being a director, to being a business owner than just being good at that one skill. You need a lot of people skills. You need a lot of general business knowledge. And that was the need that was identified by Sask Polytech, the Ministry of Advanced Education. And this is a thing, is that there's all these sorts of opportunities for business diploma graduates to get their degrees, but there wasn't anything for those people who have all this other institutional knowledge, like knowledge about their areas, to get those soft skills without going back and trying to take a 4-year degree. That just really doesn't make sense when they've all got full-time jobs and, frankly, life.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely can. I share the belief that there's a need for this program or similar programs like it, as a technical person entering the workforce, and realizing quite early that I lacked in the business world, and most of us become business owners or entrepreneurial. So I agree that it's highly valuable.
Well, and your people skills, right? You're good at being coworkers, or for what happens sometimes with some of our more tradespeople, they're in unions, they're going, but now they want to go become a manager or a director or a business owner. They don't know what life is like outside of the union environment. And you need to learn some of these things like people management. You don't need to know necessarily how to be an exact accountant, but you sure do need to understand how an accountant works, what accounting is, how it's valuable, how you can read accounting statements. You need to know the same sorts of things in finance or economics. So the whole idea of the program is now we're trying to give you those skills so that you can move up, you can start your own business, and you can really succeed.
Yeah, for sure. On that note, do you have any examples of graduates that transition their skills into real world applications in various industries?
Yeah, most recently, our most recent grads, I believe off the top of my head, it was 6 or 7 of them, all got promotions at their current jobs by them taking this program. They became supervisors, they became managers, they moved up just by taking the program. Some of them even managed to get those promotions before they were fully finished, but their employers saw how they had all this knowledge, how they could really contribute, and they got promoted, some of them even before they completely finished. So there was many of those. We have another couple of our graduates who've gone on and started their own businesses, like somebody who was in early childhood education opened up a daycare. Somebody who was doing construction is opening up like a kitchen company. So these are opportunities they've been given. The ones who started a new company, they worked through those processes in their entrepreneurship class. And those ones who have moved into some management positions, I hear things like the leadership classes, learning how to people manage, change management. Those are things that they have found really invaluable as they're trying to lead their own people through these changes and lead them to also grow. The funny thing is some of them have even all of a sudden started to tell people that work for them, well, if you want to move up, here's the program I just took. So I've answered several inquiries from people that work for people who just graduated.
Yeah, I can attest to like the leadership classes. A lot of the communications, like writing classes, are directly applicable to work. They're kind of like practical classes that you can apply. So I found them very, very useful, directly applicable to my job.
Well, again, Greg, you're one of my students. Sorry to call you out. But
yeah,
we're trying to teach you, other people. There's classes where we're teaching you how to write proper emails, how to put together proper presentations, how to communicate your ideas. You have brilliant ideas. All of you do. Like, I am always amazed, and I love it because the people in this program don't think like typical business students, which may not sound as complimentary as I mean it to, but it's because you all have different ways of thinking and you have other ideas and you have things that you can contribute, that it makes it so much more interesting. And all we're trying to do is give you those tools so you can communicate those to other leaders. Maybe if you're starting your own business, to a prospective client, or if you're trying to get financing, to a bank or to investors. And that's kind of the whole goal behind it.
So how does management education promote ethical decision-making and social responsibility among future leaders?
Well, one of the classes we do teach is law and ethics. And sometimes you have to look at where there's been failures to be able to more accurately judge what you should do in the future. Again, those leadership classes, we have you digging deep. We want you to go into yourself and think about how you would react to it. Sometimes when you're trying to plan for a crisis, the best defense is an offense, or an offense is a defense. I don't know. I'm not very sporty. You know the one I'm trying to say. But the whole idea is have a plan. And if you haven't done that exploration, which you do in this program, if you haven't gone through yourself and figured out what your core values are, what things are your deal breakers, how you would react in situations. Like, we make you do assignments that sometimes may seem off topic or a little strange, but the idea is trying to get you to think through how you would react in this situation, and to look for examples of people you think that have handled it well. And frankly, sometimes the best teacher is a failure. So to also look at places that you don't think did well, so that if you're ever in a similar situation, you have ideas, you have options. Because I think that's the biggest thing that sometimes happens with ethical decision-making for a company, is some people just feel themselves backed into a corner that they only have that one choice. Well, once you're in a business school, we're trying to teach you to expand your horizons, trying to teach you to look for those other options. So I think that's kind of the biggest area. And one of the other things is, I love corporate social responsibility. I've worked in CSR. I've been a community relations for Sask Energy, and I loved it. I think that simply knowing more about business and how it works teaches you the best ways that you can give back. We also try and do some stuff with nonprofits where we can. And I feel like that's an area that we encourage students to do, things like volunteerism. So I think those are the kind of areas that really help improve that for people who don't have that business background.
So what do you say are the so a recent grad decides to get into a management business program. What are the key skills and knowledge that those programs provide to students?
The key skills and knowledge? Well, so one of the big ones, honestly, is simply learning a lot about themselves. You learn a lot about yourself going through this program. talking to graduates, as I mention it to and bring them up, they all sit there kind of pensively for a moment and they go, yeah, I have learned an awful lot about myself. And it helps you to really form your ideas. So again, a leadership class. What's your leadership style? How would you best manage? Think about if you have an employee who you're having issues with, how would you have those conversations, right? But then we also have something like an accounting class that teaches you the basics of accounting, because you're going to have to deal with money, because people like to get paid and your invoices like to get paid. And you would like to get paid, so you'd like to make sure invoices go out. So you do have to understand the importance of accounting. And same with finance. You need to understand how your business is being run to be able to accurately run it. And I think one of the biggest areas is a lot of those HR soft skills, especially if you're starting your own company or you're working at a small company. You don't have a giant HR department. You can go and say, hey, I need to hire somebody, and they write up your job posting and they post it in all the places and they go through your resumes for you and they give you interview guides and all that sort of stuff. If you're at a small company, you're starting out for yourself, you don't know how to do that. It seems like it would be really easy, but it is surprisingly difficult and intense. And by going through this process, it takes that intimidation out of it. I teach digital communications. I just made everyone make their LinkedIn profiles because that's a vital part of business nowadays. I'm making everybody make videos because, again, look at what we're doing right now. We're on video to try and get everyone's out of their own heads to feel comfortable, to get their ideas together to make a succinct video for whether it's, again, employees, a client, a possible investor, whatever. So I think that a lot of the soft skills we teach are some of the biggest areas that people don't have. When you're taking, I'm just going to use an example of like the business information systems program. You're learning Java and you're learning programming languages and you're learning all this. You're not learning these soft skills that will help you become a manager. So I think those are probably the biggest things that come out of it. But come on, digital communications is super fun. As Greg goes, oh no, I have PTSD because I'm in that class right now.
Yeah, I can attest to that. You kind of touched on this, but how does management business education open doors for future career advancement and professional growth?
Well, honestly, for career advancement, if you've got two people that have the same really similar experience, they're both good at their jobs, and you have one that has that business management, that is the person that 9 times out of 10 will get the promotion, will get the job, because they know that they've got the basic knowledge. There was a report done, this is just in the province of Saskatchewan, but I do know other provinces. I know Canada as a whole, and I'm sure many other places have done it, a similar report. It was called Managing the Bubble. Did you know there's going to be a major management shortage in the next 5 to 10 years? With all of the baby boomers are a big group and they're all retiring. And I'm a Gen Xer. Well, because there were so many baby boomers, that Gen Xers didn't necessarily get moved up, which meant that then the millennials didn't get moved up. And now with all the baby boomers retiring, there's going to be almost a vacuum of management shortages. If there's a ton of manager openings, they don't necessarily have the time once you're in the job to learn all these skills, to learn how to manage people, to learn how to have a team meeting, to learn how to do performance management. Again, and performance management's not always bad. There's just those annual reviews you do. But if you've never done it, how would you even know where to begin? So this is where, if you're going to be promoting, you want somebody who's got those skills already, because so often now they want people to start a job and hit the ground running. And there's not as much time as there used to be for people to learn all those soft skills on the job. I mean, there still will be some, but if you have the base knowledge, at least, it'll make you way more attractive to a hiring manager.
Awesome. So let's say I've finished the program. How do I continue to develop after I graduate?
if you were going to continue to develop after you graduate, like, are you talking if after you finish the Bachelor of Applied Management? Because I know you're like, I'm close, Shannon.
Yeah.
Some of the areas I would consider doing is, again, much like you are right now, you're part of your professional association. I really encourage a lot of our students to be a part of professional associations. So again, if project management is an area they're interested in, consider being part of your CMP. Another part of the Bachelor of Applied Management is we're associated with the Chartered Management designation. So you could be a part of I think it's CMI is the initials that you could be a part of. If I'm a communications and marketing professional, I'm part of IABC, which is the International Association of Business Communicators. There's many different professional associations, and I'd really encourage people to find ones that are valuable to them. Another thing to do is to look at volunteering. There's always volunteer opportunities, and whether it's at a lower level volunteer or sitting on a volunteer board, you can learn a lot about yourself, you can practice a lot of your skills, and you can use those skills to help a volunteer organization that doesn't have the resources to pay for somebody. And then consider other certifications as well. Again, I have a certification called a CMP, which is a communications management professional, that I have to do ongoing professional development for. But I really think that a lot of our students and people in general, when they go and take other education, is to find something that you're passionate about. Maybe you really loved HR. Maybe you really loved project management. Maybe you really loved accounting or finance stuff. Find some other opportunities to do little PD events. Again, professional associations are a great place to find it. Sask Polytech, a lot of universities, polytechnics, they offer continuing education classes that you can continue to take. And even within your organization, some bigger organizations have amazing internal training opportunities that are optional for employees to take, and they let them do it for free or for a very minimal cost. So those are areas I would probably look at if you were, once you graduate, to keep learning.
Awesome, great advice. So how does management business programs enhance student abilities to work effectively in teams and collaborate in diverse groups of people?
Well, Greg, you can probably attest to this as much as anyone. Guess what we do in business education? Make you work in teams a lot.
Yep.
We sit there, sometimes we let you pick them. Sometimes we don't let you pick them, because it's the same when you're in a workforce. You don't always get to pick the people you're working with. And as much as there is an assignment that we're giving you, part of your assignment and part of the learning is not only that official assignment that's on paper or your computer screen, it's also how you work with people that perhaps aren't pulling their weight, or maybe they're too bossy, and sometimes they do have to get an instructor involved. Well, just like the real world, in a work team, you may have to get a boss involved if there's an issue that's ongoing that you can't, or HR if you're at a bigger company, or again, if you have a smaller company, learning how you're going to deal with those people who are being difficult in a team, in a class, is something that will help you if you have to deal with a teammate in your office or in your company. So that's why we put you in a lot of teams.
Okay, that's why. I was wondering.
Yeah, that's why. It's to build up that team resilience.
Yeah, there's been many discussions about, couldn't we just do this on our own? Why does it have to be in a group? But I know the answer to that question. It's been good. It definitely helps. And like you said, sometimes you pick your team, sometimes you don't. You're always in a different group, and
well, sometimes like it also helps you figure out how you're going to divide the work, right? We want you to be able to divide it up. Some of these assignments are big. We don't want all of you to do all of it. We want you to feel like you can divide up the work and share it. So
and create different strategies for dividing it as well. There's always each group has a different strategy.
Right. And maybe you have somebody who's really good at writing, and you decide that at the end, they're the ones who are everyone's going to take notes and they're going to write it all. They're going to do less of the research, but they're going to do more of the writing. Or maybe this is the person who's really strong at numbers and they're going to do budgets, or this is the really creative ones and they're going to do the presentation if you have to make one up. So it's to try and find people's strengths, and to sometimes you're going to be pushed out of your little comfort box and have to do some stuff that you maybe haven't tried before.
Yeah, for sure. I will say to that point, it's good if you have a graphic designer on your team if there's a graphic component. I found that out. So I have
Canva is pretty good. You can use Canva for a lot.
Yeah, well, it was just amazing seeing somebody who does that professionally. They're like, "Oh, I'll take the graphic design part. I do it for a living," and then just to watch them do it like instantly, it was like, "Wow, yeah, good thing we got you to do that."
Well, see, and then if you've done it by yourself, you probably would have spent a day doing it, and it takes them half an hour.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's to also figure out people's strengths within a team.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. So I want to open it up to our live guests here, but I have one more question before I do that. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience about the value of management or business education that we may not have touched on?
Well, I just really encourage people to consider it. If you think you're going to want to become a manager or own your own business, things are not as easy as they seem. There's a lot of people who are really great at what they do, and they make it look easy and make you think it's going to be no problem. Or you look at a manager, maybe you have a bad manager, like, oh, I would never do that. But until you're in that position, you don't know what you would do. So business education is really here to try and help you get those skills and those tools to figure out how to do it. Again, our Bachelor of Applied Management, the reason it runs in the evenings and online, and for domestic students where they can attend on Zoom, is to make that space in people's lives to get this education, because that was the whole part that was identified as a big gap. To go back to university, you have to take a lot of electives. You have to go for 4 years. This way, it's 2 years. We're teaching you business classes. And I've heard nothing but positive things come out of it from every one of our graduates. So I'm not saying it has to be my program, but I'm saying I do encourage people, whether it's through continuing education in their local area, to really consider taking some other classes and take those soft skill classes. Don't just be like, I have to do some accounting, so I'm going to take accounting. Take some of those soft skills, because everyone thinks they can write an email until you have to write a big company-wide serious email.
Yeah, very true. Youssef, do you have any questions for our guest here?
Thank you very much. This is very informative and very inspiring, and I strongly believe in the business like that complements every single technical person, I would say, and position him as a key player instead of just an employee in the future. I'm saying even the potential. I like when you said about the best teacher is failure, and places that you look back and stuff like that. Some people, I don't know how they do it. I want you to comment on that. They are good in technical. They have the minimum skills. I don't know, it's born. I don't know if it's something you're born with or something you cannot learn. I don't know. But they go and they start the company, and then the revenue start coming and they start hiring the talented people, and then it works. I'm not, again, this is an exception. We're not saying this is the norm. But what would you say to those people? How can they tell if they are an exception? I would say, have you ever met somebody with no business background, but you still feel they are knowledgeable about things that the general thing?
Yes, I have. And what I've noticed is most of those people who maybe haven't had the business education have been successful. I will say, I think there's been a lot of times there's been some luck involved, whether it's timing, whether it's finding a convenient gap that wasn't there before. But I also have found that a lot of those people, whether they know it or not, have gone through some sort of a business education, even though it hasn't been formal. I have found that a lot of them that I have met personally, these are just the personal ones, I can't speak to, other people may have other experiences, but what it is that they've had either managers or directors or business owners that they've worked for that they are subconsciously learning from, that they have done amazing things and worked really well, that they then have learned those skills from. But I would still even say to them, one of the biggest things in business education, when to go back to like continuing education, is to constantly look at where you have your own gaps in your learning. Like anybody who always thinks that they're perfect and, oh, I've got everything, I'm great. They really need to sit there and constantly be looking inside themselves. Listen, get actual active feedback from employees, like 360 feedback, and let it be anonymous so that they don't feel like they're going to lose their jobs. And maybe it's successful, but have they managed to find an amazing accountant that they just happen to know? Like they're lucky that they got the amazing accountant and didn't get a subpar accountant, right? Like, this is what I'm saying about some of the luck involved.
I see, I
And
see. So there are some
maybe where-
success factors that happen to be there
Mhm.
where they overcame all the challenges.
Like, again, if you look at oil and gas, there's ones who have started these small companies, but they started it at just the right time. That if they had started it 6 months earlier or a year later, they wouldn't have been successful. Like sometimes they've been able to time that little place to start it. But I would say a lot of them, it's been some luck that they've started those companies at just the right time. Like I know people who've started companies, and some of them you think this would be amazing, this would be great. Like let's just look at Zoom. Zoom was okay. Like they were moderately successful. But now the fact that Zoom is crazy, who could have ever guessed there'd be a global pandemic that would now make it so every single person has Zoom on their computer? You know, sometimes there's things, even when you look at the big wigs like Apple and Microsoft, sometimes they may not have had business acumen, but there's a lot of things that happen, family connections, where they were, where they went to school, the timing, that shows that that's kind of how they got to be as big as they were or are.
Yeah, thank you very much. Another question. Let's say somebody took all the courses and let's say they, education-wise, they equip themselves with every single like field, like you talked about change management, people skill, accounting. There's a lot of things that they did the law and ethics and the volunteering and the right mentor and everything. What is your advice about these people about getting rid of the fear of failure?
Oh, you know what? That's the one, that's a gap that I myself am still working on because it's hard and it sucks. But some of the times, really what it is to have these deep reflections with yourself. The fear of failure gets worse the bigger the consequences. So sometimes don't be scared to fail when you're lower down. I'll just use a very simple example. I was just talking to Greg before we talked. In the digital communications class, I'm making them all make videos. And I explained to him the reason I'm making people make videos is so they get over their fears. They learn how to be concise. I'm letting them have a safe space within their education to fail. Like nobody is going to see this video except you and I, whoever I'm marking. Again, this is just a very tiny example. But I find that if you do those sorts of things, this is an area that will really help people when it comes to bigger failures. But the other thing is these leadership skills and surrounding yourself with people. One of the biggest mistakes I think some business leaders do is surround themselves with yes people that constantly tell them how great they are. That's setting yourself up for a way bigger fall and bigger failure. Like, honestly, once you move up, surround yourself with people that you trust, that you know. And again, they don't have to have also taken business. There's people who are brilliant. Again, there's people who graduated, plumbers who are amazing and can give you those skills and those ideas, but listen to them. Like, constantly find those feedback loops. And that way you can hopefully course correct with the small mistakes before you get to the big failures. But they will happen. And that's where there's things like crisis communications. I believe heavily in, obviously, because it was my area, I believe heavily in professional communications people working in companies, because they do things like come up with crisis communication plans. Or there's people who come up with those plans that in case of an emergency, like there was, I cannot remember the continuity experts really, like there was plans for a global pandemic. And I remember people kind of laughing, and then COVID-19 hit, and all those people who did all those plannings for a lot of big companies, here was their binder, and there was a plan in place. So what that could have ended up being a failure. It's a lot of times trying to plan and get that feedback loop so your failures are smaller before they get into big, unmanageable, perhaps backed into a corner failures. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, both those questions that Youssef had and your answers resonated with me. The first one was the mentor thing. Like I worked at a company where we hired this guy who kind of worked his way up, and he had this like knowledge of business. Like he didn't have the formal education. You could go look him up on LinkedIn, and you know, it was like, how did he get this job? He got to such a high level. And that was my takeaway from it. Whenever people ask me that, like, how is he in this role? Like, how did he get there? And my answer was, he must have had somebody mentor him through, maybe it was his father, or maybe it was a boss or something, but it was some sort of informal education that he had that got him to that level. And he was quite effective, but like you said, there was probably spots where if he thought, you know, I'm the best at this, that going back and getting the formal education would have taken him to another level. And
that's
then,
why there's career coaches now, right? And personal coaches for a lot of leaders, because this is what they're realizing. They're helping them identify those gaps and making them do that work.
yeah, no, it's a good strategy for sure. And then the other comment you made, don't surround yourself with yes people. That resonates pretty well with me. I can attest to that one. Can be a big, you can have, you know, if you're going off course, say you're in a ship in the middle of the ocean, and the leader's leading and everybody else is agreeing that, you know, we're heading north, and you know, everybody thinks you're not heading north, you're heading east, but nobody says anything, and they just, you know, keep going out into the ocean. Things can get that, you can set yourself up for a big fail there for sure.
The Titanic, all of a sudden there's an iceberg. The captain is like, no, we're going this way, it'll be fine. And if everybody else is like, we're going to hit an iceberg, and nobody says anything, you could course correct a lot. You have a possible failure right there, but you course correct. But if nobody says anything, you're going to hit that iceberg.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good analogy. So thanks for your time. Thanks for all your wisdom. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Well, we have an email. It's BAMgt, BAMgt @saskpolytech.ca, or you can go to saskpolytech.ca/BAMgt degree to find out more information about our program. And there's a contact us email right there on the page too.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.